Growing up your entire life, you have undoubtedly heard the line, "It was a dark and stormy night," before being followed up by some sort of children's tale that would seem a little bit more cheesy or horror. These were usually stories of these like the boogeyman and simple things like that. But as you read more and into the creepypastas, you will hear far worse boogeymen, like the demonic husky in Smile Dog, the chupacabra in The Rake, or possibly like famous Slender Man. These figures have been struck fear in the hearts of many people, while making them watch for signs in a distant, otherworldly murmur, electrical interference, and unnatural yet biological shapes. All these are perfectly reasonable signs to look for. But what if there was only one sign? The pitter-patter of rain on your roof? A while back, I was in outback Australian pub. At this time, Australia was experiencing a drought and heat waves, and they were common out far more in the arid territories, usually followed by flood-like rains. I was at this pub, and with some sort of ritual travel around my home state, I was sitting in a booth, having just ordered my chicken schnitzel, before I heard a story that intrigued me beyond any normal scary story. It was told by a father, most likely in the local area, with his son, who looked to be about 6 years old. This old man began telling a story to which I'll make up the best attempt to recall. There's a man that lives out there, a man that moves with the rain, supposedly in black in the Ooga Booga times, likely referring to the pre-colonial times. When the Aborigines roamed the land, they used to do rain dances to talk to their rain gods and get it to rain. But when white people came, the Aborigines were enslaved and they couldn't do any rain dances anymore. That causes a really long drought, much like this one. But this drought had a plague with it. The Aborigines had caused the settlers behind their backs, and the children would die. Their flesh would rot and corpse would river. But the settlers got right on top of this and started tracking down and stopping the secretive rituals. But there was one occasion down in Allendale where a governor came up to one of his friends' houses to deal with the problem officially. Now this friend had lost his big leg because of some granitine. At this point, the father briefly explains, saying the granitine out of context of a body part, roaming as if it was already dead. And he already wanted the Aborigines to stop this nonsense. So he went into the little outhouse and said to them, "I know what you're up to, with the heathen rituals and curses. By order of the state, I demand you to stop this curse at once." And then the young lad stand up. He was pretty thin, but he said something that shocked the governor. "We think you cursed this Musha Gava. We are trying to help you. We are trying to bring back the Rain Man. But now that he's mad, and you better not make him any more angry." Of course, the entire group and the young man were executed for the treason soon after. But strange things really started to happen afterwards. First off, it started raining, and I mean Noah's Ark style raining. It was pouring down, and it wouldn't stop for 3 days. Back in those days, it wasn't easy. They didn't have things like fridges, so their food went off, and the rain started washing things away, and the humidity only made things more sick and more ill. The governor was just a fine nice in this mansion, until he looked outside, for there, out in the middle of the road, knee-deep in the water, was a figure. His hair was black and covering his face, and he was wearing a shirt and pants. But he was just standing there, doing nothing in the rain. The governor dismissed it as just a madman in the streets, and went to sleep. The next day he woke up, and it was perfectly sunny. The funny thing was, when he woke up, one of his servants said that there was now terrified of the same figure that he had seen the night before. He was always paranoid and locked the mansion every time it rained, especially the windows. "The Rain Man," the son uttered distantly, blinding the glimpse of the bluntly obvious. "Yup, but that's not all." 2 months later, the governor went out on his holiday home, to which he had no blinds or curtains. One of the first night he was there, it began to rain again. Being paranoid, he went out in the curtains, but since there were none, he had to sleep with them open. It wasn't too much trouble, until the clock struck 12. The governor woke up in cold sweat. He thought he heard thunder, but it wasn't stormy. And when he looked out his window, he was scared out by his wits. Standing there on the window sill was the very same man who had been seen during the previous day, that 3-day flood. He wrote in his journal, "I could see his face now. The man is clearly sick. His lips were blue, and his skin was pale and incredibly cold looking. His hair was wispy and black, like someone had upturned the ink bottle over his face. But his eyes was what terrified me the most. They were like two lanterns, perfect circles, far too wide open for normal eyes. I looked at them, and they seemed to have everything go dark. The governor hid in the study for the rest of the night and left soon after. He died naturally, but it was still haunted by his fear of the Rain Man. A child just looked scared to death, like scared out of his own wits, and that's why you should never mess with the Ooga Booga Man." I found this ending quite funny. It's a nice way to finish off a story, but I was still intrigued somewhat. I'm not gullible, but I do like the odd scary story. So I decided to take out my psychic encyclopedias for anything related to the story of the Rain Man. Surely enough, I found a story. In the 1870s, there were reports of around Central Europe of the Man in the Rain. Usually this would be considered as fairly normal, if not for its unmoving stature. He wears drab clothes that usually are hard to identify beyond a long dust coat and pants. He is described to have an appearance of a balding man with dark-colored hair and white skin with distinctive eyes. Most reports claim them to be unnaturally large, like headlights, like a cat with pupils, or no pupils or irises at all. In all due occult history, the Rain Man had said to move with the rain clouds, giving them a feeling like an avatar. During World War I, a German infantry division was in the midst of the muddy firefight, and in the chaos, the captain was writing a message to send back to his Berlin about the division's progress. The firefight had just been intermittent, lasting several days without rain had been pouring down frequently, filling the trenches. The soldier wrote in his journal, "I was writing this journal, requesting for reinforcements 2 days ago, when all of a sudden the gunshots stopped, complete silence, as if a droning record had skipped a beat. Almost for a moment I thought the firefight had ended, but it was far too abrupt. The rain was the only sound I can hear. I was tempted to fall asleep, but not once I saw him. I noticed that the gunfire had stopped, but there was no one light behind me, as if someone walked in with a torch. And when I turned around to see the soldier, I saw no such thing. I only saw 2 yellow lights and an ash-black coat. I pulled out my bayonet and challenged him. Only the sound I heard was the rain intensifying. The man turned and left, gliding out into the trenches. I followed him back as soon as I went. I was greeted with a deafening gunfire once again, and no ash-black man." Finally, there was this last report made in the 1970s, and it was a police report down below. It was nighttime, raining, and it should have been a perfect time to crook up and jump out and mug someone, and it was about 5 feet away from visibility. We were searching for that guy who supposedly robbed shops at this time. Me and Harrison were patrolling around, walking towards a corner of the block without anyone in sight, when suddenly, by as if magic, the crook ran from straight behind us. We were about to chase him when we landed on his back, and he ran to a strong man wearing a tank top, leather jacket, and long hair. We assumed that it was just a random man just wandering the streets, until we saw his eyes, and they were blank and white as a sheet of paper. He just stood there as if a criminal was throwing insults at him, which gives us time to cuff him and headed back to the car. When I looked back, the guy was gone. I still have no idea where he could have gone. There were no doors or alleyways for at least 50 meters, and he was nowhere to be seen running off into anything. He just vanished. In the same encyclopedia, I found another article in his details. The Rain Man is said to be a myth of some personification of the rain, or of a rain god. His appearances are few from far between. Not much is known about the Rain Man, since the reports of him generally only explain him standing still, staring idly at the writer. Or one feature is certain about him: his eyes there appear to be oversized, inhumanly wide, like headlights, so they lack pupils or irises. Some reports say they have an ability to light up in the area, like lantern. He also has the theme of a long dark, usually black hair draped over his face in a similar manner to Ju-Hon, or Ju-Hon is the Grudge. It's just like the Japanese horror movie. The Rain Man does not seem to attack people as it meets, nor does it seem to be a bad omen. However, there is one sign of it coming in excessive rain, and in every single corner report of sighting, there has been continuous rain and small flooding for a minimum of 3 days before sightings occurred. More recently, the Rain Man had been sighted in North America, England, France, and Australia. Usually I'd think that would be pretty neat, but now that father managed to make an interesting story off of that information. But there was no mention of the governor story, so I assumed it was fabricated. I decided to research on the Rain Man further on the internet. I got a little more than just a movie starring Tom Cruise with the same name, to which I had watched previously. A paragraph, a long story on Tumblr, which had hardly any relevance and even less grammar than the Rain Man I was researching. I went online to search for some images or videos of the Rain Man again, but with the only results being Tom Cruise movie or raincoats. But one article struck me of its interests. The article was named Amene Onna. I acknowledge it was a very popular Japanese legend, and I knew that Onana meant woman, and upon reading, I learned that Ame meant rain, and the name summed up to be the Rain Woman. Upon reading this article, I learned that there was some masculine equivalence to the article as it follows. Fans of traditional Japanese monsters might be familiar with the Ame Onna, a very creepy oke, or demon, rain woman, who's said to be able to summon the watery elements at will. But in recent years, in the term for its masculine equivalent, Amene Otoko, it has some to refer to as those of the unlucky individuals who never got invited to the beach because it always seems to rain when they show up. And now that the Tetsuya season is in full swing, those brighted folks were just getting more flack than ever, according to the annual Amene Project survey online by the Weather News. 39% of respondents said that they've been accused of being Amane Onna, or Ame Okuto, only though 33% said they would consider themselves to be one. Sounds pretty rough, right? Well, not necessarily. When I asked about their reaction if it would be a rain called the Rainmaker, 36% said that they would be upset, but a full 41% claimed that they wouldn't pay it any mind. Even though this article explains regular people for not being invited to the beach, the more disturbing thing was accompanying name image. Once again, the same whispery black hair and appearance of sickness comes through. Aside from the Japanese myth, I could not find anything in relation to the Rain Man. I returned to my research on the Rain Man, and I began looking at videos, and besides the aforementioned badly worded Tumblr story, I found a very little, so I instead went back to my supernatural books, of which I have extensive amount of them. Besides, very much of the same stories and records, I began to feel like I was going in circles again. But I did find one, however, that was interesting, and placed the end of the description of his appearance, to which I found similar to be in my other books. First you will hear rain, intense rain, then you'll hear footsteps, and your home will be creaked and a moan as if it was brand new. And as the drenched man enters your house, he will open the door as if it was unlocked, and hear the water drip from his coat to the floor. The footsteps will get closer as he approaches you. But stay in bed, pretend you're asleep, listen to the rain. If you dare look at the Rain Man in the eyes, you're already done for. That note scared the pants out of me, but I did not go against the previous reference, that completely harmless Rain Man. but it also claims that there's a house center too. Those things terrify me, to which is why I'm so infuriated with the Slender Man alike. How described him as a boogeyman, and that just took away, never to be seen again, and your only warning is the rain. As he looked further into my books, the appendages just listed in the Rain Man, in some categories as the man killers and child snatchers of the paranormal world, regardless of any of the notes otherwise in the books. I figured that this couldn't be organized or editing, since it occurred at least 5 different books. It seemed like the Rain Man just made people disappear, despite the stalwart appearance. I began formulating a picture of what the Rain Man could look like, and one image struck me like him like anything else. And even though it was an image of the rake, as eyes seems to be much like the descriptions of the Rain Man to ignore, but the eyes creeped me out, and the worst yet, it started raining. Funnily enough, from here, I'm not entirely sure what my research will do in the rain. Hopefully I'll be able to find anyone who encounters the lantern-eyed creature. Terrifying and paranormal as the rake, stiff as obnoxious as Slender Man, of course, a boogeyman whose only entrance is warned by the pitter-patter of rain on your roof. Wow, this is honestly a pretty amazing story. So that was The Rain Man, written by Mbgunsling. My final thoughts on the story? Pretty good pasta, actually. I really, honestly, really love this creepypasta. I honestly thought it was a really well-made story. I do remember hearing a story about maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4, by Mr. Creeps. He wrote this, well, not wrote, but he read this story, as well as Nature's Temper also did it. I think I remember some Ordinary Gamers did it at one point. I can't remember. But it's honestly a really well-made creepypasta. I mean, I honestly really liked it. I thought it was a really good story. I mean, it's basically like a legendary story, but I still find it to be, pretty good in my opinion. I still found it, to be, really amazing, well-made, and I honestly still find this story to be fun to write. Well, not write, but read. I mean, this being an urban legend, I can honestly see this being believable. This is actually a really well-made creepypasta. I still find this pasta to be enjoyable. It's amazing, and I honestly still like it. So, I guess with that being said, with that being the case, yeah. I honestly could see, the believabilities of what the protagonist, describes. I mean, they're believable, yes, and I definitely gotta say, I could honestly see them being very believable in a sense. It's honestly a pretty good, I honestly could say I don't really believe in stuff like, I do believe in some paranormal stuff. I believe in, some gods and that, it's all pretty well written. And especially it's how well it's been described. It honestly hits me right here saying it's a good story. I honestly still find it to be enjoyable. It's a really well made creepypasta. I still find it enjoyable, yes. I still found this story to be, quite flat out amazing. And I definitely have to say it's a pretty well made story. It does honestly have a really good concept. I could see this story to be a pretty good one. And I recommend you guys check this story out if you haven't. It's on the regular Creepypasta Wiki. And I'm definitely have to say it's worth to give it a read. I recommend you give this one a read if you haven't. You guys will not be disappointed. That's how good this story is. So, I guess with that being said, with that being the case, I'm going to sit here and say, yeah. If you're going to be asking me, what did I not exactly like about the story? Well, to be honest, I can't really pinpoint what I did not like about this story. I just can't. It's just a really well-made story, especially with the concept and everybody, not everybody, but everything about it is just that good. And it's just a really good concept in that. And I definitely have to say I recommend reading this story. It's flat out amazing. And I honestly love this story. So, with that being said, with that being the case, I'm going to sit here and just say right now that this is just simply my own personal opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is just simply my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. It's a really good creepypasta. It's well made. There's definitely a lot of time and effort into it, and I definitely can see this being a very believable legend. But I honestly have to give props to Mbgunsling. So, awesome job, dude. I mean, I'm not sure if the author will comment on this story. I mean, it's hard to say. The author might decide to comment on this post, well, video or something. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. But I still enjoy this story, dude. Or girl, or they, them, whoever for this person is. But like I said, this is just my opinion. So anyways, what did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.